Hello, and thank you for joining me today on this Moldavite journey. I'm not drunk, it's the Moldavite, and I'm giving that as a little disclaimer as I get into today's topic because I am feeling bubbly and loopy and way up there when usually during a video filming, I'm grounded and down here. So if my voice starts to seem eerily little girlish and high-pitched, and if I start giggling, just go with it. That's the Moldavite. Now, Moldavite is something I mentioned in my last video about veganism and why I choose the lifestyle of compassion. So if you saw that video, you already knew this video was coming. But today I want to really get into the spiritual aspects of this beautiful impact glass. So as a little introduction, I want to share what exactly Moldavite is and how it formed. Then from there, I'd like to share some of my personal recent experiences and also some things I've heard about Moldavite from other people who have worked with it and experienced it and have had vastly different reactions to mine. So yeah, this is the 6th time I'm trying to film this video. Maybe one day if I ever do a blooper reel for my channel, I'll show you the 5 previous attempts. One of them, while I was trying to press the record button on my cell phone to start, it wasn't doing anything. It's like it wasn't recognizing my hand. So I had to turn my phone off, put it back in the tripod, try again. Oh my goodness, like it's been a journey. So I'm taking it as a positive sign that for this particular take, the sun has finally broken through the clouds outside, so I actually look like I'm in a bright place as opposed to how dark the other ones were. And who knows, maybe in a synchronistic, meant to be spiritual sort of a way. I know some of you don't believe in that stuff, but I do, so I'm gonna say it. Maybe my phone didn't let me get the video shot properly in previous attempts because I was supposed to wait for it to be bright. So yeah, there we go. That's my explanation. Instead of blaming my technological ineptitude, I'm going to say it wasn't starting properly because it was supposed to be bright and sunny. So there we go. What is Moldavite? If you don't already know, Moldavite is an impact glass formed by a meteorite impact that struck nearly 15 million years ago in the Bohemian, well actually no, it struck in what's today Germany. And the meteorite strike was so hot, so intense, that it not only liquefied the rocks and the soil and the sediment in the surrounding area, it actually vaporized it. The impact, kind of like if you throw a really big heavy stone on the ground, you'll see like the dirt around it kind of get flung up into the air. Well, what happened with Moldavite was the impact of that space rock, that gigantic meteorite that struck, was so intense and so burning hot that it flung the sediment past the Earth's atmosphere. So it literally sent the earthly matter as debris into outer space. And when it showered back down again as this gorgeous green glass, it landed in what is now the Bohemian Plateau near the Moldau River in Czech Republic. That is the only place in the world where Moldavite can be found. There are other tektites out there. Most of them are black and most of them are opaque. They're not actually translucent. I'll hold up a smaller little bit so you can see what I mean about the translucency. See how it's a clear green glass, like you can actually shine a light through it. Other tektites don't have that property. And so for that reason, Moldavite is the world's only gem grade tektite. Up until the last couple of 100 years, people who work with gemstones referred to all green stones as emeralds. And so in that Bohemian part of the world, the Czech Republic, these Bohemian emeralds were considered to be mystical emeralds that fell from the sky. It's really incredible that even in the Middle Ages, people knew the extraterrestrial origin of this gorgeous material. But yeah, it was mythologized. People in that area referred to it as the Stone of the Holy Grail. There were legends that the Grail Cup was carved out of this Moldavite. And going back to Neolithic times, one of the very first crystal talismans ever discovered in a burial chamber was Moldavite. And as somebody who went to a couple of years of art school, I went to the Emily Carr University of Art and Design in Vancouver. So I remember from my very first art history class, Art History 101, even as I say that, I'm visualizing the little AHIS textbook, the big chunky textbook we had. One of the very first artifacts that we learned about in art history is the Venus of Willendorf. Just as an example of how difficult it is for me to talk surrounded by so much Moldavite and wearing this piece. I almost said the Venus of Willendorf, even though it's the Venus of Willendorf. I am going to just take a deep breath because I'm not going to go for a seventh take. That would be too excessive, but the words that are coming out my mouth, I have to consciously put the effort into articulating them as they're meant to be instead of as the Moldavite is playing with me in my mind. So ground myself a little bit and let's try this again. So the art history textbook had a picture of the Venus of Willendorf, and if you haven't seen this, you can pause it and Google if you're interested, or just listen to my description. It's a very voluptuous, heavy set woman's body, and her head is like a big circle made up of other little circles. It looks like if you take Play-Doh and you make a bunch of little balls and then you stick them together in a bigger ball. That's what the Venus of Willendorf's head looks like. When I first saw a picture of her, I interpreted that as being like eyes going all around her head, because one of the spiritual experiences I had back when I was, I think, 17 or 18, just out of high school, I would have really intense lucid dreams on a regular basis. I would have out-of-body experiences regularly. It was not something I did deliberately. In fact, it scared me back then. I didn't want it to happen, but it was kind of uncontrollable. But in one of my teenage mystical experiences, I went out of my body and I could see everything in every direction and also through everything. So it's like I could see down to my body on the bed, through like the foundation of the house, through the dirt. It's like everything became like a glassiness. It's so hard to put into words because there's nothing like it in physical reality. Actually, there is. Yeah, it's like everything was made out of colored glass. So it's like, you know, if you look at a stained glass window, you can see through that stained glass window pane to the outside, but you see the glass and you see the outside. Anyhow, it's like I could see everything as like a light form of itself, like a light grid, and through everything in every direction simultaneously. And it was really interesting. I think that was one of my favorite spiritual experiences, because when I came back into my body, I was thinking, up until that point, my interpretation of eyeballs is that they allow our consciousness to perceive our surroundings. But after that experience, it was like our eyeballs narrow our vision and focus it to just a single point in space, whereas in our out of body form, like in our spiritual vehicle that sometimes gets translated through the body, we can see everything and through everything, far into space, down into the smallest atoms and particles of the world. And it's like our eyes are not the windows through which we see existence. Our eyes are like the windows through which we see existence in a limited form. It's like if you go like this, like you're seeing through your hand, but you're also blocking out all the periphery around you. It's like a it's like a window that gets shrunk. Anyhow, when I saw the Venus of Willendorf in a textbook for the first time and saw all these little balls making up the bigger ball of her head, I immediately wondered, like, did some Paleolithic artist or shaman who made this little goddess figurine, did they have that experience even way back then, and they found a sculptural way to visually represent it? Because if each of those little balls is an eye, then she is seen in every direction simultaneously. And it was kind of mind-blowing for me to contemplate on the fact that something I had never been able to articulate, because back then I didn't have anybody I could talk about spirituality with. Like, my friends were all into partying and bar hopping and drinking and listening to dubstep and stuff like that back then, going to raves. In a way, they were seeking experiences, but they weren't really interested in the transcendental aspect of those experiences. It was more like if you go to an amusement park and you want to take a ride, they were looking for the altered state, but not necessarily how to integrate that into a transformative experience. So anyhow, the reason I'm getting into the Venus of Willendorf, bear with me, it's not off topic. It's because the same exact cave where the Venus of Willendorf was discovered by archaeologists, there were pieces of Moldavite. So whoever had carved that beautiful figurine, the goddess-worshipping, nature-connected, prehistoric people, they also recognized something about Moldavite. And I just found this out. It's funny because I've been into art history since my college years. I don't want to tell you how long ago that was. It's embarrassing. I'm freaking old, guys. But I've been interested in art history for that long. I've been interested in Moldavite since 2006. And yet it's just now being brought to my attention that the Venus of Willendorf and Moldavite were found together in that old cave. And so it was like an aha moment for me, which is that one of my first favorite mystical experiences of having that omnidirectional perception represented in this little goddess statue was found by Moldavite. It made me think, could meditating with it, holding it, wearing it as a talisman, carrying it around, could that be the catalyst that triggered the experience that inspired the artist to make the Venus of Willendorf? I'm going to pause the video for a second so that I can kind of redo the camera angle so that you can see the Moldavite with the light source behind it. I think that'll be way more powerful and better for this video than just looking at me talk. So be right back. Okay, so I'm probably not going to stay on this angle for too long because I'm holding the camera in my hand now. It's a little shaky. But yeah, I felt like holding up this gorgeous, ginormous chunk of Moldavite wasn't doing it justice because it looks so dark and drab if the light source is shining on it, as opposed to when it's backlit like this with the sunlight behind it. So yeah, what I was saying is that I always believed that whoever had carved the Venus of Willendorf had done so because of a divine experience, because of a meditative, visionary state that they had entered. And I've always felt that Moldavite can trigger visionary, out-of-body, high-frequency, meditative, synchronistic states. And it's just so incredible to me to now understand that there's a connection between the two. So yeah, this gorgeous chunk of Moldavite I'm holding here, it is the biggest piece in my collection. It's the biggest piece I've ever held, the biggest piece I've ever even seen in real life. It was gifted to me by a very generous YouTube viewer who has also bought some things from my Etsy shop. It was a total surprise gift. Obviously, this viewer got my address from my return address labels in an Etsy order, and I just felt so incredibly moved and blessed. They say that the Moldavite you get chooses you, so I feel just incredibly honored that this piece chose me. Also sent, whoops, this lovely piece here, which I think it might be a Besednis Moldavite because of the hedgehog shape and the little spikies. Hang on, now it's focusing on the parking lot across the street. There we go. Yeah, look at that gorgeous piece. Okay, back to the other video format. Okay, so it's just easier for me to speak when I'm not also holding the camera, so I'm sorry I had to take away that gorgeous angle where you could see this piece beautifully backlit by the sunlight. I also feel like the parking lot across the street from my building is not the most beautiful thing you can look at while I'm talking, so let's have the human touch, that personal connection. I don't usually film with me on camera anymore because I prefer to show you my drawings, which I've done in more recent videos, but yeah, I think for the topic of Moldavite, it's nice to be able to have eye contact in a certain way, for you to be able to see who's talking to you. So yeah, as I was saying, it's one of my viewers had gifted me these two gorgeous pieces, and I realized that I've been taking Moldavite for granted for the past couple of years. The last time I spoke about Moldavite in a video, it was about 1.5 years ago, maybe a little longer. And, you know, I showed some pieces I made for my Etsy shop, and I shared some of the stories of what happened to me when I first started working with Moldavite way back in 2006. And after that, I just got so caught up in making beautiful jewelry and drawing pictures and sharing more fun topics that I forgot to honor the Moldavite that I have. Like this little piece here, it's the very first piece I ever owned. The first piece I bought at the Crystal Arc in Vancouver way back when. So if you saw my previous Moldavite video, all the experiences I talk about having in that video are from this beautiful little guy right here. And I think that, like we often do as human beings, when we first get something, we are so enamored by it, like we're so into it that we think about it all the time, we play with it all the time, we carry it with us wherever we go. And then after a while, we've integrated it so much into who we are that it doesn't give us that excitement factor anymore. It's kind of like with a relationship. When you're with somebody new, you're so excited to learn everything about them and share everything about you and combine energies and join forces. And then later, the taking for granted starts when you feel like, yeah, I've heard all your stories, like don't bore me with this again, and vice versa. I feel like the same thing can happen with our crystal allies. If we've worked with the stone for years, if we've had it in our lives for, you know, over a decade as I have with this piece, it's like we lose interest in a way. And so when I had this surprise package with a few other crystals, but especially these two Moldavites, it made me so consciously aware of the fact that this profound extraterrestrial crystal energy has been available to me for this whole time, and that I know it works because I've had personal experiences with it, and yet I haven't been honoring it in my life and using it. And so it really catalyzed a revisitation within me to think back to my Moldavite experiences. On a really serious note, people who work with Moldavite, myself included, experience a major upheaval regarding anything in your life that's not serving your highest good. So for example, when I first got Moldavite, within, just a couple of months, I lost my job. Now that I think back, 2006 was when I first read about Moldavite in the Book of Stones. I didn't actually get a piece of my own until 2008, which was like 2 years later. And it was so funny because I would go to every crystal and metaphysical store in Vancouver looking for Moldavite. We're talking the Crystal Ark, Banyan Books, Amethyst Creations, Dragon Space. I even took the ferry all the way across to North Vancouver to Lonsdale Key because I heard there was a crystal store there. And if you know Vancouver, that's a long journey just to look for a stone. But yeah, I had gone on a search for Moldavite, and it happened every time that I got to one of those stores. I would ask so enthusiastically, do you have any Moldavite? Like, I'm ready to buy it. And every freaking time, the person behind the counter would say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, we just sold out." And back then, like, I was working full-time at, well, first, when I first was on my quest, I was a full-time art school student at Emily Carr. And then I worked part-time at a store called Turnabout on both of my days off. So I was either at school or at work 7 days a week. So on those off moments when I had like an afternoon to myself because there was only half day of classes, or if my shift at Turnabout didn't start until noon, so I had the morning to myself, it was in those little chunks of time that I could grasp for myself that I would go to these crystal stores. And it just felt like existence was swatting me down, like, no Moldavite for you. But finally, in 2008, and I wish I knew the exact day, like, if you're on a journey working with crystals and spirituality and stones, my top piece of advice for you is to journal it. Like, when you get your very first piece of Moldavite, it might be so transformational and overwhelming and exciting for you that you think you'll never forget it, but take it from me, there will come a day when you think, now, was that 2006 or 2008? Or you'll be thinking, like, was that February of 2021 or was it May of 2021? Like, you're gonna want to know the specifics, so write it down. I wish I had. Anyhow, that day, there was a day I woke up, I had a full day off. At that point, I was working at a store called DKNY. Don't want to get into it. It was not a right fit for a sensitive, spiritually inclined animal rights activist like me. It was not a good place to work. So I had a full day off, and I decided, you know what, today, I'm not taking no for an answer. I am going to get my Moldavite. Like, there is going to be a piece available. I'm going to find it. I'm not coming home empty-handed tonight. So I had that feeling of sheer determination. So I got dressed. I took the bus down to Granville Island, walked into the Crystal Ark, and the moment the little bells rang as I pushed the door open, my friend Christine, who was the store manager at the time, looked up and said, "Sarah, I see you've answered the call of the Moldavite. Come get your piece." And it was like, there was no celestial choir of angels going, ah, but it's like I felt that. And I just looked at her and said, "How did you know that I'm here for my Moldavite today?" And then she kind of looked at me and said, "What, really? That's what you came for?" And so it was one of those moments where each of us recognized our psychic ability in the other and felt validated. It was a really cool moment. I have mentioned this in my previous Moldavite video, and somebody asked in the comments, like, wow, how did she know that you were there for Moldavite? And My answer to that is that she didn't know in her, brain, human mind. She didn't know that I came for the Moldavite. Just like I didn't know in my brain that morning a new shipment of Moldavite had reached the crystal ark from heaven and earth. But on a higher spiritual level, my being knew it. And that's why my physical, intellectual, brain matter mind decided, you know what, today's the day I'm getting some. And she, Christine, didn't know that me, Sarah, had planned on buying Moldavite that day, but her higher being, like the higher version of herself, translating through the human form, knew to say, the Moldavite has called you, come pick your piece. And when you get more into spiritual work, you start to understand how things like this happen. And I know a lot of people are uncomfortable with terms like higher self, spiritual self, cosmic self, and human self, because it's all the same self. So I want to clarify my definition of that term. When I say higher spiritual self, I don't mean something else outside of you that's better than you. What I mean is the entire essence that's getting translated through the physical human form of you. So going back again to my teenage experience of the omnidirectional vision, it's not that when I left the human physical body in that out-of-body experience, and for you skeptics out there, it's not like when I had that dream, I was suddenly a better form than this form speaking. It's not that the higher self is better than the lower self. It's not like on a scale of 1 to 10, what's higher, what's lower. It's more like in order to adequately exist on this third dimensional earthly plane, we have to kind of compact ourselves in a way that can be understood in this dimensional frequency. And so the higher self is like the unfiltered, untranslated, all-encompassing essence. And everyone has it, from the lowest vibrational individual who yells at waiters in restaurants because he's so agitated about himself, to the highest spiritual meditator who sits on a mountain surrounded by Moldavite all day. Every one of us has a higher self, and every single one of us has access to the same higher dimensional wisdom. Nobody's better than anybody else. Nobody's worse than anybody else. We're all in this oneness state. But how our physical forms translate that essence, seek or avoid oneness with that essence, what we choose to surround ourselves with, that's different for everybody. And again, not better or worse, just different. So for me personally, my greatest excitement in life is exploring and translating spirituality into physicality. That's just what I am. It's just what I'm into. And it's kind of cool. I think in a couple of weeks I'll be doing a video on a very lovely individual's channel who is a major skeptic, someone who escaped Teal Swan's cult and now has dedicated their time to exposing New Age deceptions and how a lot of the things she was teaching caused a disruption and a disturbance in their life. And, that individual does not believe in crystal healing, isn't vegan, isn't interested in manifestation, would probably think everything I've said in this video other than hi and welcome to my channel is bullshit. But yet we're able to share a lovely space of mutual respect and mutual understanding, because each one of us recognizes in the other the benefit of what the other is doing. We've both escaped cults, and we've both dedicated time to saving others from falling into that same cult trap. That individual's journey is taking them into the realm of critical thinking and skepticism and exposing all kinds of the hooey that's shared on the internet with a very blunt, I could say a very blunt no to everything mystical, spiritual. Me, on the other hand, I also want to save people from falling into that cult trap and keep others elevated in their own critical thinking, but while saying yes, let's explore, and who really knows what is or what isn't when it comes to the spiritual, mystical realms. And so the reason I want to mention that, I've seen this individual post on their Twitter feed, Andy Fellows, for those of you wondering why I'm not naming names, it's just because I forgot their name for a moment there, but they've posted on Twitter, and again, I attribute that to the Moldavite drunkenness. They've posted on Twitter comments that people have sent them saying, you know, if you only raised your vibration a little bit, you'd understand that your negativity is triggered by the hurt that you felt by the spiritual world. And I read these comments that quote unquote spiritual people were sending to Andy and thought, that judgment is a reflection of them, of the person saying those negative things. Like, when you get interested in manifestation or spirituality or tarot cards or crystal healing or Moldavite or whatever else it might be, others who don't believe in it are not further back or less evolved or less spiritual than you. Their life path is different than your life path. What they're meant to process and integrate is different than what you're meant to process and integrate. And I think one of the worst things people on the spiritual journey can fall into is the trap of spiritual ego, where we think, well, you know what, one day that guy is going to be where I am now, or one day that girl is going to realize that she was wrong and I'm right. Like, no, we're all right, because what we each perceive as our unique reality is our unique reality. There's no such thing as one true religion. And yet every individual who practices any given religion, when they feel uplifted, benefited, joyful about it, that's right for them. And who are we to judge? Anyhow, rant about dropping our spiritual ego aside, when it came to my experience at the Crystal Arc and Christine telling me, you know, come pick your piece, the Moldavite has called you, for at least a week after that, I carried this Moldavite with me everywhere I went in my crystal pouch. I didn't sleep without it under my pillow. I didn't go to work without it in a pouch in my pocket. And, you know, for the first couple of days, I felt what they call Moldavite High or Moldavite drunk, which means while walking to work, I would just absent-mindedly start crossing the street without looking both ways first. And while talking to a customer, I would hear that high-pitched bing in my ear and just shut out whatever the customer was saying to enjoy that. And I'm not talking about tinnitus or a negative thing. I'm talking about a positive, uplifting thing. A lot of us on a spiritual path will experience that, where we suddenly hear an elevated frequency, and usually an epiphany comes with it. In my experience, usually I'll get an idea for something I want to do, or a vision for a piece of art I want to make. Back then, I recently had a keyboard in my apartment, so I would get ideas for tunes to play, and I would go home at the end of the workday and play those tunes on the keyboard. It's pretty fun. But yeah, a lot of us, when we first get Moldavite, we are so enthralled by it because a lot of people love the idea of crystal healing and gemstone energies, but feel like they don't have access to actually sensing and perceiving that crystal energy. So they'll hold a piece of rose quartz and they'll know intellectually, okay, crystal healers say that this is a stone of love, but when they don't feel anything in their heart, they'll think I must not be sensitive to crystals. And a lot of people will get stones based on what other crystal healers recommend to them. And when nothing happens, they'll think, okay, well, I guess it's just another bunch of bullshit and it doesn't really work. What makes Moldavite so unique is that a great majority of people who hold it for the first time, whether they're already true believers in crystals or whether they're total skeptics who don't believe in any of this stuff, they will feel something. And Robert Simmons coined the term Moldavite Flush to describe it because he experienced, when first introducing Moldavite to the public, people holding it for the first time would have blood rush to their cheeks, just like if you're blushing because you're embarrassed or you have a crush or, you know, somebody is staring at you. That same kind of a increased heartbeat, blood rush will translate through Moldavite. And a lot of people, when they hold it for the first time, will get a throbbing pulsation in their head. I've heard this described as a Moldavite headache. And others, for example, when my mom first held a piece for the first time, she kind of fell into that category of somewhat skeptical, like she was open to it. She didn't disregard entirely the possibility. But I remember back then she told me that she felt her whole arm get tingly, like she felt tingles go from where the Moldavite was in her hand up her elbow. And so it's really interesting that a lot of people feel something. And something I want to say now as a bit of a disclaimer, another spiritual YouTuber, Mark Bayerski, I've recently gotten captivated by his videos because his energy is just so excited and friendly and jovial and comical, and he's so obviously enjoying his life that it makes it fun to listen to him speak. He had mentioned that the best way to approach Moldavite is the skeptical way. Hold your first piece while thinking probably nothing's going to happen, but let's just find out, let's just see. Because he said a lot of people will watch his videos and hear him speak about the Moldavite Flush and the burst of energy that Moldavite brings, and that sets them up for disappointment because they're expecting fireworks to go off and kundalini to be jumping and throbbing pulsations to just burst their third eye open so that they see, even in the wakeful state, what exists in all the other realms. And that when that doesn't happen, it makes them feel inadequate, like Moldavite didn't choose them. He said that he hears way cooler testimonials from people who go into it thinking, well, all those other people could be making this up. I'm going to test it for myself and find out. Because that's the space to be in where your mind just gets expanded and you just feel so amazed when you hold it and it actually does work for you. So anyhow, back to the original focus I wanted to give for this video, which is my rekindled passion for Moldavite, since these two beauties came into my life recently. And that's that I had been taking Moldavite for granted. So back in the 2000s, when I first got into it, as I was saying, I would take it with me wherever I would go. I would sleep with it under my pillow. I would meditate with it on a regular basis. And one of the effects Moldavite has in people's lives is that anything going on in your life that's not serving your highest purpose will be expelled from your vicinity. Like, you will no longer be able to tolerate intolerable things. So for me, I got fired from DKNY within a few months of starting to carry Moldavite everywhere. And it was a jarring experience because even though I resented the fact that I had to peddle leather goods, even though I literally stopped doing my job as a form of kind of a silent protest. So if a customer wanted to try on leather shoes, I would divert them towards the cotton sweaters instead because I did not want to be a part of that animal exploitation industry. So of course, I shouldn't have been working there. I should have quit months earlier. I should have never taken the job to begin with. But because I was living with the fear mentality of, I have to pay my student loans, I have to pay my rent, I have to pay for food, I have to live, I was in that survivalist trap where I thought I had to have that job because I had to pay for all those things. I wasn't yet in the space of manifestation where I felt the right job that's matched to my vibration will be available for me. I was more holding on to what I didn't actually enjoy because I thought I needed it than going out there and searching for something better suited to me because I couldn't imagine it would even exist. So yeah, the day I got fired from DKNY, I got a phone call from Dragon Space from the lovely then manager Birgit, who was managing Dragon Space. And it had been like a year since I had dropped off a resume there. I gave up hope that I would ever get that job. Well, that night Birgit called me and said, we have a position available for you. It's full-time. You'd start in 2 weeks. Would you like it? And it was just so incredibly amazing to me that the thing that I was attached to but didn't actually resonate with was ripped away from me, like ripping off a Band-Aid, but the healing was instant. The better position at Dragon Space was there later that day. I got fired at 10 in the morning, and this bothered me. If you're an employer and you're seeing this video, if you're going to let go of an employee, give them the courtesy of firing them at the end of a workday. Not at the beginning of a workday, because I could have had that whole day to myself. I could have slept in, I could have done something, but no, like why would you make somebody come all the way into work and then let them go? That's just, it doesn't make sense. Anyhow, yeah, like I was let go at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I called my then boyfriend. He miraculously had that day off, so we met for coffee. I had a nice vegan muffin, and he just reassured me and said, don't worry about it. Like, my payout from that store was enough to cover my next month's rent, so I didn't need to feel insecure. That meant I had time to look for another job. But I wasn't in that space of fear for much longer because, like I said, Dragon Space called. I think it was at about 4:30 or 5 later that same exact day. So Moldavite, it has a way of ripping away from us the things that are not serving our higher purpose, but also bringing in the synchronicities where those things are replaced by something better suited to us, that's more in line with who we truly are. It also brought an end to that relationship, and it was a very codependent, negative kind of a relationship. The guy I was with, we had been together since I was in grade 12. He had moved out to Vancouver to live with me, but we were two completely opposite people going in a very different direction in life. For example, he was a meat eater, I was a vegan. He was never going to change, I was never going to change. And that did trigger a lot of conflict because that's a deal breaker for me. I can't really be with somebody and share my life with somebody if compassion isn't the driving force behind their decisions. And yeah, that relationship came to an end. But when it did, it was a very amicable break. And my friend Kelly happened to have a room available in her condo for rent, and the price asked was less than what I had been paying for the apartment I had before. So again, something I felt attached to out of necessity. Like, I need this apartment because it's all I can afford, and I can never break up with that guy because we signed the lease together and we split the rent. So what would I do if I didn't have my roommate? It's like those problems are solved before we even have the chance to think about how we're going to solve them. Now, one interesting experience I had with the Moldavite, I had a beautiful Moldavite ring that I had bought at Dragon Space. I can't show it to you because it's been sold to the lovely Sarah. If you're watching this, hi, I hope you love it. But I had a beautiful Moldavite ring. There were 4 rings that I wore all the time. A Moldavite ring, a Larimar ring, this moonstone ring that I'm wearing right now, and a Labradorite ring. The first day I went into a place called Life Bliss Foundation in Vancouver, which was the front for the Nityananda cult. During the meditation, my fingers started to swell and my rings started to feel extremely uncomfortable, including the Moldavite ring. So I took them all off, continued with the meditation, and decided I must have outgrown these stones. I must not be supposed to wear them anymore. So I stopped wearing crystals and I started wearing the mala beads that were given to us at that center. And in hindsight is 2020. In hindsight, I can see Moldavite is a stone that will not allow dysfunctional energies to permeate the lives of those who are wearing it. Well, now I understand that Moldavite ring was trying to warn me to run and to stay away from that fraud guru, not to fall into the cult trap. But my spiritual ego that wanted to believe in that guru, that wanted to believe he would give me enlightenment, overrode the warning system from that Moldavite. And I can see that now as a deciding moment that led me into that cult downfall. So it's really interesting because I've tried to understand over the years how somebody as intuitive as me, working as a professional tarot card reader, who had a very strong spiritual grounding within myself, how had I been deceived by that cult? And now I can understand I was totally ignoring the warning systems. It's not that I didn't have red flags or psychic hints that it was wrong to follow that fake guru. It's that I chose to ignore them and I allowed my ego to be greater than my spiritual perceptions. And so I don't feel Moldavite failed me and let me get caught in a cult. I feel like I turned my back on Moldavite and took it off and stopped wearing it for the entire time I was in that cult. And so about 1.5 years ago, when I made a video about my Moldavite experiences, the experiences I shared were things that had happened to me in my life before I had found the fraud who calls himself Nityananda. And I almost felt like I no longer deserved beautiful Moldavite experiences anymore because I had had them and then neglected them and then got caught in a cult. Now I feel that the healing process has brought me back to a point where I understand nobody deserves or doesn't deserve beautiful experiences. And maybe this is a message you need to hear too. If you've had profound spiritual awakenings, lucid dreams, mystic visions, maybe you've heard an angelic voice or you've had a powerful synchronicity, and then you fell down from that frequency again, you got caught back up in the fight mentality of the current political situation, the political climate of America, or you fell into the fear-mongering promoted by the QAnon bullshitters, or you've allowed yourself to be terrified of catching the virus because of the mainstream media constantly pushing this idea that we're all doomed. I do wear a mask, by the way, because I understand how viruses work and that they spread through the air. So I'm not saying the media is wrong to promote wearing a mask and social distancing. I'm all for that. But I don't feel we should be trapped in fear because of it. As long as we follow the protocols, sanitize our hands, wash our hands whenever we can, and avoid becoming a part of the spread, we'll be fine. So anyhow, if you've been at a high elevated spiritual place and then you feel like you've been derailed and gotten into a negative relationship or an abusive situation or a cult, or you've started disregarding your personal intuitions and instead blindly following somebody else's, which turns out to be detrimental, don't feel like you have to climb back up to where you once were. It's like if you're up here and then you feel yourself fall down there, you don't have to step by step by step by step earn the right to be back where you were again. You just have to decide, and it's instantaneous. And this is what the reintroduction of Moldavite into my life in this past couple of months has done for me. It helped me understand I was once a great, in my estimation, great meaning I fully enjoyed my spiritual life, felt benefited by it, and accurate in my readings. So when I was thinking like, okay, I was once a great mystic, and then I allowed myself to be brainwashed in a cult, and now I don't know what's real and what's not real, and it sucks. How do I get back up there again? I was looking at the problem from such a faulty cognizance. I was looking at the problem thinking, what did I do to get to that point before? Like, it took me 24 years of my life to reach that height, and then I took 12 years derailed in a cult. Now what? Now I understand. It's just an instant decision. It's so silly to think about this, because anything you've ever been, you still are. You just have to wipe away the sludge and the slime and the ick of whatever has happened to you since. So if at one point you had a really profound spiritual connection, and then you feel like you've lost it and you want to get it back again, take a little bit of effort to purge whatever makes you feel like you've lost it, because that has no right to be a part of your identity. If you've been abused by somebody, you are not less now than you were before you were victimized. Just understand that individual who did something shitty to you, tried to hijack your life, now cut that cord, and you're instantly back to the height that you once were before you let somebody else make you feel less, make you feel small. So it's really interesting how the Moldavite has helped me come to terms with the cult trap I had fallen into and the abuse I had suffered, and to understand I don't have to keep limiting myself just because I feel like I've lost myself. How do you find yourself again? You just decide, wait, all those wonderful things about me that I used to enjoy, that's still me. Here I am. And it's to me something that Moldavite has triggered, and that's why I felt really compelled to make another video about Moldavite, because whenever I experience something that makes me feel good, I naturally want to share it with anybody who wants to listen on YouTube. So that's the big breakthrough that I've had in the past month or so that I think is really exciting. It was actually on New Year's, going into 2021, I made a necklace that I shared, I think 2 videos back, out of blue fluorite with a Lemurian seed crystal and some prehnite. And when I put on that New Year's necklace, as I call it, I suddenly felt my power back. I suddenly felt that, you know, the crystal healing and the jewelry making, it really is my life path, and this is what I'm here for, and it's beautiful. And that led me to rediscover this awesome book, ET 101. And I'll tell you the story about how I got this book in another video. It's too much to get into right now. But it's like all of these realizations started to come back to me. And then right at the height of my decision not to censor my spiritual side anymore, this Moldavite landed in my P.O. box and just blasted away any last residual self-doubt I was holding on to. So yeah, Moldavite is just such a powerful, transformational, I'm going to call it a crystal, even though it's a tektite, just because that's a more accessible term. It's such a transformational crystal that if you feel like your life needs a reboot, like you need to cut the cords that are holding you back, or, you know, break free from the psychological hold any negative experience you've ever had is still holding on you, I highly recommend investing in a little piece of Moldavite, because for me personally, that has been the catalyst years and years and years ago that got me out of a negative work environment and into a more positive one. I have nothing but love and beautiful things to say about Dragon Space. It's still one of my favorite stores, and it helped me end a destructive relationship and get into a roommate situation with my friend Kelly, who is just such a beautiful being who didn't rip me off with rent at all. She charged me such a ridiculously low price for Vancouver. It just helped me so much back then, and it's helping me so much again right now. So into the really airy-fairy mystical side of this, when I first sat down to meditate with these two new Moldavite pieces, I had one in each hand. I sat down on my bed, and the first thing that came to my consciousness was a flashback to the vision of Mahakali I had had when I was 13. The year I went vegan, I had this profound, beautiful darshan. I was wide awake. I wasn't asleep. I was sitting in half lotus posture and trying to break my fear of the dark. I shouldn't say trying. I broke my fear of the dark that day. I haven't had a fear of the dark since, which is really cool. Again, that's a topic for another video. But when I sat with these two Moldavites to meditate with them for the first time, I had a revisitation, a flashback to my vision of Kali, only it went into a multi-dimensional layer. I could see, when I first had my Kali vision, my eyes were closed and I saw her appear as if projected onto my eyelids, like as if she was inside my head. And afterwards, for days after that vision, I would wonder, did I leave my body and enter into this vast blackness where she exists and I was seeing her as one more skull in her aura, gazing at her perfection? Or had she entered into me, so I was seeing her from within my own head with my eyes closed? Well, holding on to the Moldavite, and this is interesting, just for the record, this was in broad daylight that I had this recent experience. So it's not like it was in a dark place or like I was thinking about Kali or setting the tone for it. It just came out of nowhere, or it came out of everywhere, that suddenly I just had a flashback to that vision, only I saw she had come down into my mind. So she was appearing within me, and me was the everywhere, was the everything, was that vast, perfect black darkness in which I perceived her. And the experience revealed itself to me as an infinite fractal, going in and going out. Like, this beautiful form of Kali is inside me and I'm seeing her, and she is in everything, and that's another big me, and that other big me is perceiving an even bigger Kali who is everything and who is in everyone, and so on, forward and backwards, up and down, getting bigger and getting smaller. So these little, beyond smaller than microscopic, infinitesimal little teeny tiny Sarah is seeing a teeny tiny little Kali, but who is also grandiose and huge, all the way past the greatest size of infinity of the multiverse. And when I came out of that meditation with Moldavite, and this was just, I wrote this down in my diary because I meant it when I said we should write down the dates that things happen. This was on January 26th that I had that beautiful fractal multidimensional Kali experience, so very recently. And one of the realizations I had when I came out of that is almost like in an Alex Grey painting. When you see Alex Grey's paintings of people, each of them has this sacred geometric makeup that extends past their aura. And when they interact with each other, those multi-dimensional sacred geometric fields are kind of colliding and mingling. I suddenly realized everyone is a similar such fractal. Everyone goes infinitely up and down into their higher selves, their lower selves, perceiving consciousness as higher selves and lower selves. And for me, it came in the form of my Ishtadevata, who is Mahakali. For others, it might come in other forms. But how cool that all of us exist on all these different dimensional planes simultaneously. So I'm not sure if I'm articulating this properly, because it's hard to translate mystical visions into verbal words. But this is something that I really believe Moldavite can unlock the door to. It can grant us access to this kind of wisdom. And that's why I believe those prehistoric people who carved the Venus of Willendorf, I believe they were accessing similar sacred states, and that's why even back then they honored Moldavite. I can't show you a book about Moldavite I recently bought because my tripod is sitting on it, but it's called Moldavite, the Stone That Fell to the Earth. I don't even know how to pronounce the name of the author, but it's written by a Czech person who, his whole family has a Moldavite business. Like, they've been mining Moldavite and carving it and making it into jewelry and selling it, I think, for a couple of generations now. And in that book, he writes that archaeologists have actually found Moldavite, which only comes from that one area in the Bohemian Plateau. They've discovered it hundreds of kilometers away in burial sites and in sacred sites of other ancient cultures. And so when we contemplate the fact that those ancient peoples, their only mode of transportation was their 2 feet, like they had to trek across vast distances, across mountain ranges, across rivers and streams and uncharted terrain to find things, their trade routes were of prime importance. They didn't trade just anything. It's not like in our commodity culture today where we've got, AliExpress and Wish and Amazon and Etsy, and where people are buying and selling all kinds of random stuff. And at the click of a button, you can order pretty much anything you want to anywhere in the world. It wasn't like that back then. They would only trade with things that were truly necessities or powerful, profoundly coveted materials. So the fact that Moldavite was considered worthy of trade back then really shows that it's not a new age stone. It's not a new age crystal or a new age material. It's actually one of the oldest age spiritual talismans we have access to, that even before there was a written language to communicate experiences, people felt that Moldavite power, honored it, and enshrined it along with their goddess, the Venus of Willendorf. It's really cool because when I was first thinking about the goddess connection with this stone, I noticed, I don't know if I'll be able to show it to you, but it's coming up clearly. See right here, there's a double crescent moon, the waxing moon and the waning moon. And the form of the goddess for a lot of pagans is the triple moon, the waxing, full, and waning, which represents girlhood, motherhood, and cronehood, when the elderly woman becomes the teacher, passing on her wisdom. So seeing that reflected in the stone that I was holding while thinking about the mystical connection of Moldavite to goddess consciousness and divine feminine energy, again, it just triggered for me the awareness that I'm on the right path and doing the right thing. There's a vocabulary word, I forget what it is right now, but it came up while I was watching an Ancient Aliens type show, and there's an actual psychological word for it when you see a face in something where it's not deliberately meant to be there. For example, you're cloud gazing and suddenly you see a beautiful face appear in the clouds, which happened to me once with Moldavite. Or you make your piece of toast and you think you see, Leonard Nimoy appear in your toast. A lot of us will see things, will recognize patterns where there aren't patterns. What's fascinating is biologically the reason why we have that ability to create faces or create patterns is that anciently when human beings were the prey animals to hunter animals, we're talking so long ago, like when saber-toothed tigers were roaming the world hunting our ancestors, hunter animals have a way of camouflaging themselves in their surroundings. Sitting in a bush and you'd have to really look closely to see that eye peeking through the leaves. And so our ancestors had to develop the ability to recognize where something is different because there might just be somebody hiding or lurking there to get them. And I think this is why so many people have a fear of the dark, because they see shadows in the darkness and interpret them as boogeymen, and it comes from that survival instinct, that once necessary genetic predisposition to recognizing danger. But I think sometimes that can serve us well in a good way. For example, when people are reading tea leaves, the reason they're able to see patterns or shapes or forms or objects within the formation of the leaves on the bottom of a teacup traces back to that same instinctual ability to recognize something different or to see a face where there isn't one. Speaking of little hunter animals, my cat Minou might be jumping up any second now. If you see me distracted, it's because she's down there doing this to my pajama pants. Yeah, full disclosure, we're in a second lockdown where I live, so restaurants are closed, stores are closed, we can't really go out and do anything. Plus, it's minus 26 degrees Celsius out there, so I've been hamstering in my apartment for a while, just staying warm as much as I can. So yeah, I only dress up from the waist up when I have to do a video now. No. Hey, good girl. Sorry. She had one of my hair strands. My hair has grown ridiculously long, again, because I haven't been able to go to a salon with the lockdown, and I haven't had a cut or a trim in 6 months, and it's grown, in a year, and it's grown about from here to there. So it's grown about, I guess, 6 inches, and unfortunately, that can be a danger for cats. They're not supposed to have strings or things in their mouth. Anyhow, I'm getting way off topic again. Sorry about that. But yeah, the Moldavite. Now, I don't remember the exact point I was on, and again, I think of this as being Moldavite High because usually I'm with it when I do my videos. But I know we were talking about the Venus of Willendorf. Oh yeah, and that prehistoric people wouldn't be trading just anything. They would only trade things that are of high value to them. And so food materials that were requirements, and clothing articles that were requirements. And of course, why would Moldavite be a requirement? What's fascinating is that historians and archaeologists have said that Moldavite was not used by them as a tool. They didn't work it the way they would work flint into an arrowhead. They didn't use it like an obsidian blade. They kept it a lot of the time in its raw form or in a talismanic jewelry form. So why would it have been of such high value if they weren't using it as a tool? I think the answer is obvious. They were using it for spiritual purposes. And then the fact that we've rediscovered it now and that it's become so hugely popular. I think one of the videos I was watching, I did a huge YouTube, I went down the Moldavite rabbit hole, seeing how many YouTube videos about it are out there. And one of them was called TikTok Made Me Buy Moldavite. So somebody on TikTok has done a little video talking about their Moldavite experience, and so a whole new generation of people who didn't even know they were spiritual seekers have been turned on to it. The other thing that I've discovered, unfortunately, is that there is a shit ton of fake Moldavite on the market now. A lot of it is coming from China, some of it's also coming from India, and I think some really convincing fakes are being made in Thailand. Because Moldavite is an impact glass, it doesn't have a crystalline structure the way other crystals and stones do. It is essentially a bottled glass green colored substance. And so the way you can recognize real Moldavite as opposed to fake Moldavite is that it has that etched look to the surface. It doesn't have a perfect glossy, glassy look to it. It looks dark. It looks mottled. I've ordered myself a UV light, a UV flashlight, and a jeweler's loop that magnifies up to 40 times. I might also, I'm saving up for something else that I think would be cool. I'm saving my pennies. We don't have pennies in Canada anymore, so I'm saving my hypothetical pennies for a little microscope that can attach into my iPhone to make a little video of what it looks like under a microscope, because the way that you can scientifically tell real Moldavite from fake Moldavite is that the man-made glasses have a change under the UV lighting that the natural Moldavite tektite doesn't. And so when people with the GIA are certifying genuine Moldavite, they put it under a UV test to make sure it's really the natural tektite. And the other thing they do is they look at it under a microscope to make sure that it has the natural formations that can only happen in the glass as it falls through the Earth's atmosphere. So for example, there are different shapes of minuscule microscopic bubbles that form in it. And what's really cool is that scientists have tested what's inside those bubbles, and it's not earthly air. It's space. It's space gas, which is really, really cool and fascinating, because when you hold any piece of Moldavite, even the teeniest, tiniest that I'm about to show you here, this tiny little charm, see that teeny tiny little, it's smaller than my pinky fingernail, a little teeny tiny bit of Moldavite. Even the tiniest little pieces of natural Moldavite have these microscopic bubbles in them. And so if you've ever bought some from a source that you're not really sure about, you can test it yourself by looking at it under UV light, making sure it doesn't change color because it's not a fluorescent stone. And look at it under a microscope to find the little tiny bubbles. Man-made glass can only have perfectly round, perfectly spherical little bubbles in it. Moldavite can have bubbles of various shapes. A lot of them have elongated oval shaped bubbles. Some natural Moldavite will also have some perfectly round little bubbles. It's not unheard of. But if you want to see your Moldavite, look at it under a microscope if you get the chance. And the best way to avoid buying fake Moldavite is to buy Moldavite only from people who you trust. So in order to, for example, procure the Moldavite to make this gorgeous lariat necklace / meditation crown that I just made for my Etsy shop, it was tough. The Czech government has actually criminalized Moldavite mining. It is illegal to mine for Moldavite. And it's, in a way, it's a sad thing, in a way, it's a good thing, because Moldavite had such a surge of popularity after the 1990s. Sorry, no. I had some tissue paper down there from packing orders, and she's digging in it. No. Good girl. Sorry, when I ignore my cats for too long, they try to get my attention like little kids, like, look at me, look at me. And when it's sunny out, I do this thing with Minou specifically, where I should do it right now. Whenever the sun starts coming in the apartment, she wants to play the game where I shine like a light. I'm not sure if I can show you. I'll take my mirror and shine a light on the wall there, like that, and she chases and catches it. So she's trying to get me to play the mirror game with her. So I'm going to end this video pretty quickly so that I can pay attention to my little girlies again. But first I want to finish the point I'm making. Moldavite mining has become illegal in the Czech Republic because it's no longer found anywhere near the surface. At least it's very, very rare to find it. So it used to be that when farmers would churn up the soil in their fields, they would find Moldavite, and that's how Moldavite made it to the market. And in one of the Robert Simmons videos where he talks about going to the Czech Republic to find Moldavite, he mentioned they had dug a pit 20 feet deep. The Moldavite miners, like in the area where Moldavite's found, had to go 20 feet into the earth to find Moldavite. And unfortunately, a lot of these miners were coming from the space of greed, not, spiritual, profound excitement, but thinking, how can we get rich, like a gold rush, a Moldavite rush? And so they were trespassing on land, digging gigantic pits, and then just leaving those pits, not filling it back in again. And so the environmental minister of Czech Republic put an end to that. And with good reason, it's disruptive to the environment, it hurts the ecosystem, animals can fall into those pits and get trapped, which is just heartbreaking for a compassionate hearted person to contemplate. So Moldavite mining has now ended. People in Czech Republic can no longer find and export Moldavite to other countries, which means there will not be any more new Moldavite found entering the market. Whatever Moldavite has already been discovered and unearthed and shared, that's all the Moldavite we're ever going to be able to have access to. So the shop where I used to buy the Moldavite from my shop, the girl is a Czech girl. She hasn't had any new Moldavite beads for 8 months. So I sent her a message and said, I really need to restock my Moldavite collection. I loved working with hers because I knew for a fact it's genuine, it's certified, it's UV tested, it's microscope tested, and plus she gets it from her Czech relatives, so I know it's coming from an authentic source. And yeah, she explained to me that she herself doesn't have access to any new stock because the Moldavite mining has come to an end. So I scoured the internet. I spent about 3 days searching. I finally found a Facebook group called, I think, Moldavite Collectors. It's more of a group for people who are collecting high-end museum-grade Moldavite pieces. But I went through the archives on that group and tracked down 2 Moldavite sellers in Germany who have old stock Moldavite, which means Moldavite that was from previous finds before it was illegal to mine it. Long story short, because you don't need to hear all of this blah blah blahs. After verifying that they're genuine, credible sellers, I ordered as much as I could afford, which means I didn't order any other beads or jewelry supplies or paper stuff for my other Etsy shop where I sell handmade junk journals and books and stuff. I decided to bet on the Moldavite, and I was really lucky to find, some teeny weeny little itty bitty pieces because, whoops, that's not one of the teeniest. This is one of the teeniest. Look at the size difference from this one that I would consider a small Moldavite to that one that is, look at it by my fingernail. It's just teeny tiny. And look at the little Herkimer diamond with it. I'm trying to get my hand in shadow so you can see it. Look at that tiny little Herkimer quartz. That genuine Herkimer diamond is so microscopic. I think it's 2 millimeters from tip to tip, like long, not wide. 1 millimeter by 2 millimeters. And I think the Moldavite is about 4 millimeters by 5 millimeters and a millimeter thick. So it's teeny weeny, but it's 100% natural. It's bought from a dealer who gets it directly from Czech Republic. And when I unboxed the package that these materials came in, I got the Moldavite High. Like my head started, it's happening even right now because I'm holding more than I was holding before, where my ears pop. You know, if you're on a plane and the altitude is changing, so the pressure in the cabin changes and your ears start popping, that's one of the physical symptoms I personally get with Moldavite. And I haven't heard anybody else mention that when they talk about their Moldavite experiences. So I'm putting it out there in this video. I'm curious if you've ever had your ears pop because you're wearing Moldavite. Sorry, my cat again. She'll probably come zipping back and forth. So, in fact, I'm gonna get her off of that. She's on my jewelry table and I don't want her knocking stuff down. Minu? Yeah. I don't know if you can hear her voice, but she does the cutest little meow when she sees this. There we go. I'll get her chasing the mirror light. So yeah, as I was saying, it's guaranteed to be genuine. There are different theories in the mystical Moldavite community about what you should do if you're inspired to get your first piece and work with it, whether you should go big and buy a necklace that's made like this one that has, I think now I can demonstrate how else you can wear it. Try not to get it caught in my hair as I do this. This is a long piece, and don't worry, if any of my hair is in it, I will pull that out carefully and cleanse it before I sell it on Etsy. But it's 20 inches of Moldavite and Herkimer quartz. I'll try to show it to you in focus. And I've wrapped it in copper wire. This is something that I read about in the original Book of Stones, where Robert Simmons was explaining how Moldavite can open the third eye and how powerful it is to meditate with it. And he said probably the most intense energy tool a person can make is a meditation headband out of Moldavite and Herkimer Diamond with copper. So I've wrapped Moldavite and Herkimer Diamonds with copper wire. This end is my favorite. I made a loop of Herkimer Diamonds. Oh gosh, now Minu is trying to play with it. It's not a cat toy. No. I've made this, see that bigger Herkimer diamond? No. That bigger Herkimer diamond in the center. You all must think I'm that crazy cat lady. I'm not talking to, like, she's under where the camera can catch so you can't see her, but she's like going like this to the bottom of my Moldavite necklace. Anyhow, it's long enough that you can actually wrap it around your head like a meditation piece, and then just hold it in place by doing up the one Moldavite at the end through the Herkimer loop at the other end. I deliberately didn't wear it like this for the video today because I would be, like, I'm already feeling my third eye is throbbing. So yeah, it's a powerful piece if you're looking for something to catapult your meditations into another frequency or another dimension. Then you could go for an investment piece like this. And it is an investment. It cost a lot for the materials, plus I spent about 6 hours working on it because my hands started shaking and my hands were buzzing and I could feel that energy pulsating in my palms. With every Moldavite and Herkimer diamond that I wrapped, it was getting more and more intense. So it's an investment piece because of the work that went into it and the cost of the materials. But yeah, now you can hear Minu playing with that tissue paper. Like I said, she is trying to get my attention. Just like a little kid, right? Anyhow, Robert Simmons of Heaven and Earth, I heard him say in a video that when people are new to Moldavite, he gives them a huge Moldavite necklace to wear with like 40 grams of Moldavites wrapped around their necks so that they've got definite access to the Moldavite power. And I've heard Mark Bayerski, who has his own YouTube channel mostly about Moldavite, say that the teeniest, tiniest little pieces are ideal for a beginner, because if you feel Moldavite energy, you will feel it whether it's a gigantic piece or a barrel full of Moldavites, or whether it's a teeny tiny one. And so it's interesting hearing these two vastly different ideas of what your first Moldavite experience should be, whether it should be a gigantic big energy piece like a Moldavite Herkimer Diamond meditation crown, or if it should be a smaller piece because that's all you need. And I had another aha moment while contemplating this, and it's that you work your way up to the bigger pieces, because the very first time I ever held Moldavite, like I said, this was my very first piece of Moldavite. That's all I needed. That's all I could handle. I felt Moldavite drunk just walking around in Vancouver with this beauty in my pocket and, you know, meditating, holding this beauty on my third eye. That was all I needed. You conspiracy theorists out there, that was not an Illuminati hand gesture just now. I was accidentally there. I just wanted to demonstrate this. I was not trying to put this symbol over my eye. Conspiracy theorists can be the worst, right? They always look for the worst in what people do. Anyhow, I suddenly had this aha moment while thinking about, okay, what's better, the big giant piece or the little tiny piece for your first Moldavite experience? I love the way Mark Bayerski describes it. He says that if you invest in like an $800 piece of Moldavite like this one here, and you've put all the money you can afford and then some into a piece of Moldavite with your hopes up, expecting something profound, just waiting to feel that energy. You're not sure what it's going to be, but you're excited about it, and you want the Moldavite flush, you want your cheeks to turn pink, you want your head to start throbbing, you want to see yourself out of your body. You'll feel like you wasted your money if that big piece of Moldavite comes and nothing happens, or if you don't immediately feel it start working with you. Whereas if you buy a smaller piece and you say invest $100 on it or $50 on it or what you can afford, if you hold it and you don't feel it, or you don't immediately feel its effect, you won't feel like you've broken the bank on nothing. Whereas if you start small with an affordable little piece and you do feel it, and you do feel your energy awaken, and you do feel the Moldavite flush, and your heart starts pounding, and your chakras are opening, and your sleep is getting more intense, and gosh, I haven't even gotten into the dreams I've had. I think I'll have to do a part 2 of this video and tell you about the Moldavite dreams I've had in the past, couple of weeks working with this again. It's just so exciting. So if you don't spend too much money on your first piece, you get a nice little piece. That's all you need. If you can feel its energy, if you're sensitive to it, even the tiniest, even if I took this one, and this is a naturally formed little itty bitty piece, even if I broke that one in half, so it was only a fraction of its size, even that's all you need. Because size doesn't matter, it's the frequency. And the epiphany I had, the aha moment I had, was while cooking my dinner last night. I was making myself some steamed broccoli over noodles, and I was thinking, like, how can I explain Moldavite? Because I was planning as I was cooking what this video was going to be, and I suddenly thought of food when you're hungry. If you're hungry and somebody gives you a full, complete meal, like a filling meal, they've sat it down in front of you, you've got, say, salad and a baked potato and some marinated tempeh that's been cooked to perfection, and afterwards there's a delicious fruit smoothie or whatever else it might be, just as much food as you can eat, and you eat that and then you're stuffed full. You don't want them to then bring you cartloads of other meals and say, here you go, I brought you all of this because you were hungry. Because once you're full, you can't force feed yourself any more than what you've already taken in. I think Moldavite is like that. The reason size doesn't matter, the reason the tiniest itty bitty little bit is enough, is that once you're satiated, you're satiated. And so it's not that the bigger pieces don't have more energy than the smaller pieces. It's that the smaller piece will fill you up. You won't have room for the bigger piece. That's how I'm seeing it at this point in time. And feel free to disagree with me or share how you feel it works in the comments. But that's how I feel it works. And the way I feel it is also that once you've built up your tolerance to the small little pieces, your frequency has been raised, your vibration has been accelerated, you're there to the point that wearing that little Moldavite is your natural state. When you bring more of it towards yourself, then you reach up to that next level and that next level and then that next level. And what I've heard a lot of people say on YouTube regarding their personal Moldavite experiences is that they can't stop accumulating more and more and more. It's almost like an addiction, but in a good way, because it takes you deeper and deeper into yourself and your truth. But the moment you're used to the Moldavite you have, then it's time to get a little bit more and a little bit more and expand onward and upward. And I was thinking again in terms of food, in a bad way, if somebody overeats, their stomach stretches and expands and then they can eat more and more. It's like that with Moldavite, but in a good way. You know, your consciousness stretches and then you can hold more and more. Your aura goes out further and further. So if you're holding and wearing and working with even tons of Moldavite, which would have been overwhelming for you before, what's happening is that you're processing that energy, sharing it and radiating it outwards in a good way. Just a sec. Sorry about that. My nose started dripping and I didn't want to blow it on camera because ew. But anyway, don't worry, it's not COVID. It's just when the sun starts shining directly on me like this, it makes my eyes water and it makes my nose water. And I've been in direct sunlight for a while now, kind of trying to avoid it, but it's having that effect. Sorry, my low battery sign popped up now. So I think that's the natural ending time for this video. But yeah, what I was saying is don't feel that you have to break the bank and invest in a ginormous piece or a power piece like this one or a museum grade piece. If you're new to Moldavite and you've watched this whole video and you've listened to everything I have to share, then for sure Moldavite is calling to you. Just like it was calling to me that day when I walked into the Crystal Arc. So you're here for the Moldavite. Here's your piece. I decided to offer a wide enough variety in my Etsy shop that literally anybody can afford it. So the teeny tiny little talismans like this one, I've made 5 of them using all the itty bitty little microscopic sized Moldavites I could get with mini little Herkimer diamonds. Those guys I priced at only $11.11. So it would be more expensive for me to buy the materials to make these than what I'm selling them for if I was buying them individually. It's only because I was able to get a good wholesale bunch that I'm able to even think about selling them for such a low cost. But I've got those itty bitty little Moldavite Herkimers. I've got the higher end options. I've made 4 of these, which are a larger bit of Moldavite. It's still small. It's still less than a gram if you want to go by weight, but it's bigger than the itty bitties. It has a slightly bigger Herkimer quartz diamond, and I've wrapped these in 14 karat gold filled wire. So that gold and the pendant veil is also 14 karat gold fill. What that means is that it's a really thick coating of genuine real gold, and it's not going to flake or chip or fade or get tarnished the way typical gold plate will. It's an expensive stuff to work with, so that also is why they're a higher priced piece than the itty bitty little ones. And backed by popular demand, I've also started making more of my classic design Moldavite Tektite Herkimer Diamond trios. What's interesting is that, again, watching Mark Bayerski's YouTube channel, he says Moldavite Tektite and Herkimer Diamond together are the most powerful combination trio for healing, for spiritual awakening, for meditation, for integrating Moldavite energy. And I feel really validated hearing him say that, because this is a combination I've been doing since 2014 when I first opened my Etsy store, The Art of Gems. I just felt that this would be an ideal combination. So I've got women's bracelets, men's bracelets. I'm not trying to put people into a rigid category of gender. It's the size of the wrist. The average size of a female wrist is 7 inches. The average size of a male wrist is 8 inches. So when I say men's bracelet, women's bracelet, it's more about the size. And if you identify differently and you don't like the rigid definition, just buy whatever bracelet you like, and when you check out from my shop, tell me the size of your wrist and I will change it for you. Or if you're a man, you want a men's bracelet but your wrist is smaller or larger, don't worry, like I'm very flexible and I'm open to custom orders, and I can always make something for you in your unique wrist size. Anyhow, that said, Moldavite, Herkimer, and Tektite, so beautiful. I think this is my current favorite. I've made this one with all, the others have obsidian as the base, which also harmonizes well with the Moldavite, Tektite, Herkimer frequency. But this one is all just big, massive, natural black Tektites with little Herkimers and the tiny Moldavites between. I think whoever gets this bracelet, you're in for a ride. Like, you can also pop this on top of your head if you sit really still in a meditation, and it would also be like a meditation crown. Even as I say that, I realize literally any piece of Moldavite jewelry, you could just set it on top of your head as you meditate and it'll take you there. So yeah, I've also got earrings. I'm not gonna show you every single piece I've made, but you know, pendants with Moldavite, Herkimer, Tektite. And the last piece I'll show you in this video, I've got these sterling silver necklaces. I only have 2 of these available, but the pendant is a stainless steel cage that has a beautiful natural piece. I have to do this off camera to get it out properly without dropping it. A gorgeous, slightly larger piece of natural raw Moldavite. So these I highly recommend if you're less of a jewelry person and more of a meditator person, because you can wear it as a pendant on the necklace whenever you want to. But if you're like me and you like to have your Moldavite for, you know, holding in your hand while you meditate, which for me just feels the best. Although I might have trouble parting with this when somebody buys it, because the longer I wear it, the more I feel just, woo, a good little energy. But these are nice because the Moldavite isn't permanently stuck in the piece of jewelry. You can wear it or you can take it out and hold it. And the cages are very secure. You just have to kind of whoop, squish them down again, but it's not going anywhere when it's in that. That said, be conscious if you're wearing, not only from my shop, but from any shop, a lot of people sell bead cages made out of wire for crystals and gems. They're very secure, they're very safe. I've worn them myself in the past, but you have to be careful because if the wire snags on something like a zipper or your purse or a buckle, if it pulls, of course that will create an opening for the crystal to pop out of. And Moldavite is famous for playing, you know, playing hide and go seek with the people who like to keep it. And it can disappear, it can jump out, it can hide on you. And so of course, be mindful of that if you're wearing a piece, carrying it just loose in your pocket or wearing it in a pouch. Personally, I've never experienced the Moldavite disappearing, but I've heard from people who have had that happen. And I think the last thing I want to mention in this video, I went through the comments beneath my last Moldavite video and was so sad. Like, I was heartbroken to read a comment by a viewer who said that She had some Moldavite for the very first time. She put it on her bedstand when she was going to sleep. And her cat, who normally slept with her in the bed, hid in her closet for that entire night and was scared and didn't want to come out. And she was asking, has anybody else had this happen? Like, why do cats fear Moldavite or hate Moldavite? As you saw when as you heard me get her to stop doing, like, my cats personally love it. I've had Oreo, when I was holding this one on my lap, for example, Oreo came up beside me and rested her chin on it like this and just slept with it. I've had her steal pouches with Moldavite that I was trying to wrap up for customers buying from my Etsy shop. There's one on Instagram from about a year ago, I think, where I couldn't resist sharing it because she took the whole little pouch with Moldavite in it, dragged it to her little sleepy spot, and had it like under her paws and under her face. So I think it depends on a few things, but someone else replied to that comment and said that her beloved kitty actually ran away when she got the Moldavite, left her house and never came back. And I replied to that comment thread because as a cat lover, as an animal lover in general, I wanted resolution. And I said, like, I'm so sorry to hear that this happened to you. Like, has your kitty come home? And she replied, sadly, no, that it's been about a year and she still doesn't know where her kitty cat friend went. So, my heart really breaks for her and for anybody else whose pets had an adverse reaction to Moldavite. I really still hope and pray that her kitty returns home and that at least maybe somebody else found the kitty and thought it was a homeless pet and adopted that cat and is now taking care of him and feeding him and loving him. Like, gosh, I would feel terrible if something bad happened to that kitty. But I got chatting with that viewer and said, my only theory is this, because Moldavite triggers in us, the healing that we need, the stability that we need, but sometimes it throws us into chaos before the stability comes. Like, if you're working in a hostile work environment, it'll pull you out of that environment before it brings you to the better environment. Or if you're in, a bad relationship, there will be an ending before you rediscover the joy of being with yourself, or before you find another partner, if that's what you choose. It's probably going to be Valentine's Day when I publish this, now that I think of it. So let me just say, happy day of love or self-love, or love for others, or love for family, or love for pets. Like, my crystals are my Valentine. My cats are my Valentine. Not everyone needs to be in a relationship. So if Moldavite brings a destructive relationship to an ending, don't think that it's going to immediately bring you to your soulmate or your twin flame, which I don't think really even exists. It might just show you how comfortable and joyful you can be with yourself as your best friend, as your best company. So anyhow, just to bust that little myth, it's not going to make you manifest the best job or manifest the best relationship. It could show you a totally different path that you never even expected, and you don't know how great it is because you're not on it yet. So just be open to anything with Moldavite. And when it comes to cats are very perceptive. They're very intuitive. If I'm ever feeling down, my cat Oreo will be like on my chest here purring. And I've read and heard that that's what cats do when they want to heal people. One of my aunties once said that she had a bad migraine, and she wasn't even a cat person. Her son moved back home and brought his cat with him. And at first she wasn't into it. Now she's a cat lady like the rest of us. I think anybody who thinks they don't like cats, when they get a cat, they become cat people. So she is in love with this kitty cat now. But she told us once that when she had a migraine, that cat just climbed up near her chest and started purring. And better than any medication, that cat's purr just eased her pain and healed her. And this is something I've read about all over the internet, because the cat lady that I am, I'm always curious to hear how having cats has helped people. But that said, because cats are so sensitive to what we feel, what we experience, and how we are, if we're going through something traumatic and we're purging some really negative experiences and we're bringing up some chaos because it has to be cleared, the cats will feel that and respond to it. It's not that cats love or hate Moldavite. It's that cats will be sensitive to what the Moldavite is triggering within us. And so, just as a little disclaimer, if there are unresolved traumas in your past, or if you're in like a codependent relationship with somebody who's emotionally abusive or mentally puts you down or physically harms you, or you're going into work every day and you just know that that is not the job you're meant to have, if you bring Moldavite into your life and suddenly all of these things that you've been ignoring get brought into the forefront, and for example, repressed memories might come back to you where you remember childhood traumas that you genuinely forgot even happened, so you haven't been dealing with them. It can be really painful when those get brought back to the surface. And if you have a cat who's really tuned into your emotions, it could freak the crap out of that kitty. Like it could be so jarring, because suddenly the person who is that cat's best friend, companion, the way we think of them as our cats, they think of us as their people. When the kitty's person is suddenly thrown into a spiral of chaos or negativity or profound healing that kitty has never seen before, that could really be frightening. And so just be aware of that. If I'm not saying don't work with Moldavite if you have traumas, because Moldavite is a healer. It will help you face those traumas, I believe. Again, this is all just pseudoscience and based on, personal experience, not lab research. So take it with a grain of salt, but this is how I feel it works. I believe that when it brings those negative experiences to the surface and forces us to look at the decisions we've taken that have led to negativity, or sometimes when we haven't taken any decisions but negative things just happen to us and we feel totally flabbergasted and victimized that we've been hurt, if we're processing those kinds of negative emotions, once we've cleared them, our life will go further, even faster and even better. It's not bad to process negativity. It's not bad to transmute the negativity. It's not bad to, purify ourselves. It's like if you're doing a physical body cleanse and you break out in acne because your skin is getting out the toxins. It might be temporarily unattractive or uncomfortable or painful to touch your skin, but once it's cleared, you'll be glowing, right? It's worth going through. You have to get the toxic out of your system. And so if you have a kitty, or if you have young children, or if you have a dog, or if you have any kind of animals or people around you, just be aware that when you bring the Moldavite into your place, it's not only your life that it's going to start to change, it's going to be felt by them too. And so maybe don't sleep with the Moldavite if your cat usually sleeps on the bed with you, and the Moldavite might be triggering repressed memories, or kind of forcing you to go through a major upheaval. It might be better to work with the Moldavite in smaller increments, like keep it in a nice box or in a pouch somewhere in the other part of your house or your apartment. And when you feel like it, give yourself a session with the Moldavite, specifically sit with it for a period of time, maybe with the door closed so you're by yourself in the room while you're healing and processing. And don't feel the need to wear it all the time, 24/7, carry it with you, keep it on you, sleep with it under your pillow all the time at first. if you're feeling like the Moldavite drunkenness, and if it's creating any kind of disturbance whatsoever in your environment, ease yourself into it. And of course, for me, this time around, the moment I got these pieces, I've kept them in a pouch in my pocket 24/7. I'm only wearing my dresses that have pockets so I can keep it in my pocket. I'm only wearing my pajama tops that have like pockets over the heart, and I'm keeping them there, sleeping with them under my pillow. But that's partly because I've been working with Moldavite off and on since 2008. And also because I know it's not bothering my cats. I know because like they're trying to play with the necklaces and stealing the pouches, so it's not creating any discomfort for them. And also I have the benefit of working from home, so I'm not out there loopy wandering across the street losing track of where I am. There's not really much danger that can hit me between my living room, my kitchen, my bathroom, my bedroom. The most I do is walk to the post office with my Etsy orders, but I'm mindful of the street. Don't worry, I'm not being uncareful. Anyhow, there was an experience though. Sorry, my battery sign is coming up again. The first day that I had these pieces, I took a shower and I left them on the bathroom counter while I took my shower. Again, this is the first day that I had them, so I wasn't fully attuned to the frequency of such a ginormous, like, I think this one was 45 grams piece of Moldavite. And my shower routine is very consistent and typical. I'm not going to go into all the details, but I've got my routine where, you know, I shampoo, and while I'm shampooing, I wash my face, and then I rinse off the shampoo, then I do the condition. Okay, I am going into all the boring details. But anyway, when the Moldavite was on my bathroom counter, I suddenly realized I had squeezed like a mound of hair conditioner into my hand from the bottle. We're talking like a cup and a half of hair conditioner. And like I was laughing at myself thinking, this is the Moldavite. Like I zoned out while squeezing conditioner into my hand. Like, how out there in the clouds do you have to be if you're literally watching yourself squeeze like over a cup of conditioner into your hand? For dudes or short-haired people, even if you've got like lockdown locks like I do, and you've let your hair grow down past your waist, the maximum amount of conditioner you need would be like a quarter of a cup. And that's if you're doing like root to tip deep condition. So having like conditioner, that can cause a danger. And I suddenly realized, like, when they say don't operate heavy equipment while you're wearing Moldavite, it's not just like to sound funny, like, ooh, you'll be high on Moldavite. Like, it's legit advice that you should follow. Don't do anything dangerous if you're still acclimatizing to a new piece of Moldavite, because I realized that could be dangerous because the bathtub floor could get really freaking slippery with hair conditioner on it. So anyway, yeah, that's my little cautionary tale, is be mindful of what you're doing, even if you're in a really high frequency Moldavite rush sort of a state. Anyhow, enough for one video. Everything else I've noted down in my lovely journal here that I wanted to cover in this video, I will talk about in an upcoming Moldavite video. And who knows, I might just go the way of people like Mark Bayerski and other spiritual YouTubers who talk about Moldavite like once a week. We'll see, because there's so much to say that I want to keep talking and talking, but I'm not going to waste any more of your time. But let me know in the comments if you have worked with Moldavite. How has it made you feel? Have you had any really cool visions or dreams or spiritual experiences with it? Or any beautiful shifts where you left a dysfunctional workplace or relationship or situation or thought pattern and moved into something more resonant and harmonious with your life? I'm just very curious to hear your Moldavite stories too. And The first 5 people who mention seeing this video, if you buy something in my Etsy shop, so that means you buy something and at checkout you say, hey, I saw your Moldavite video, I will send you a teeny tiny Herkimer pendant charm as a free gift. I would love to give free Moldavite, but it's such a rare commodity now for my shop that I just don't have enough to give out like that. But I'll say the first person who buys something from me in my Etsy shop called The Art of Gems, maybe $10 or more, so that's worth it to send it. Meaning I don't want to sound greedy here. I have postcards of my artwork, of my abstract drawings, available for $2.50 each. And the shipping price is set only at $1 because I ship them in a flat envelope, so it only costs me $1 for the stamp. I can't give away free crystals with the purchase of postcards because then they become a small packet, and the shipping fee for me is $8 Canadian. So I would be losing so much money if I did that, because it would mean the customer pays $3.50 for the item and the shipping, and then I'm giving them a crystal and paying $8 to send it to them. It would mean I lose like more than double what the item actually cost. Anyhow, I'm bad with math, but you know what I'm saying. It would cost me way too much money to do that. But if you spend $10 or more in my shop on a crystal piece, a jewelry piece, I will send the first person who mentions this video one of the Moldavite and Herkimer charms. And the first 5 people will get a little tiny Herkimer quartz diamond charm. And the reason is Herkimer quartz diamond is the stone that most beautifully enhances the qualities of Moldavite. It's like if you have a little Moldavite and you're meditating with it, that'll fill you up. If you're having a Moldavite with a Herkimer quartz diamond and you're meditating with it, it will overflow from you and just take you so much further, which is again why Moldavite and Herkimer in the copper wire for this meditation crown necklace lariat piece. Anyhow, thank you for watching. I'm going to end it now before I blabber on any more about this. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. Thank you for watching this video. You are a trooper if you've made it to this point. And if you're seeing this in the future, so you know you're not going to be one of the first 5 people to mention this while buying something in my Etsy shop, mention it at checkout anyway, no matter how far into the future you've seen it, and I'll include a special gift. I won't say what, but something more than what I would normally send. And just for the record, with my Etsy shop, I love to give people more than what they bought. I'm one of those people where if I buy something from somebody's shop and they send me a free gift with purchase, that just makes my whole day and I get super excited about it. So in both of my shops, like if somebody buys some stickers from me in my Art of Gems stationery store on Etsy, I will always send them a washi tape sample and another sticker, and sometimes like a little paper clip charm. Like they always get a free gift with purchase. And in my jewelry shop, each month I have a different gem that I send as a free gift on top of the order. So for example, February, the birthstone for the month of February is amethyst. So everyone who buys from me in February gets a free amethyst charm as a surprise gift with their purchase. And that changes every month. But yeah, if you mention watching this YouTube video while buying anything, you'll get the typical free gift for whatever month it might be, plus another little free gift. And if you're within the first 5, you'll get the free gift, the other free gift, and the Herkimer pendant. It's so confusing for me to describe, but don't worry, I've got it up here, so I'm not going to confuse it when I pack your orders. And with that, I am too Moldavite drunk right now to even keep talking or to trust myself to be coherent if I let myself keep talking. So I'm just going to turn off the camera, soak in some of this beautiful sunlight that we have been missing because it's been like a deep freeze winter here. I'm going to enjoy this Moldavite meditation, and the next time we chat, I will be more grounded. I might take on a different topic for the video. Maybe I'll tell you the story of the Arcturians in the book ET 101 coming into my life. We'll see. Let me know in the comments if there's any topic you're interested in. I'm always open to video requests. And yeah, let's enjoy this Moldavite journey. Much love always. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.